So let me see if I can do this right. Um, I apologize in advance. I think we're live. I think we're live. Am I live? I don't know. I wonder if there's like a way to edit this to where it doesn't start now and then waits a little longer. Um, I am live. All right. We're gonna wait a little longer just to see if we can get some folks in. If you're in, let me see. Type in something on the comment. I just kind of want to see who's on. Uh, that wasn't right. I don't know what I did. Hey, Donald. Okay. Well, whether it is gonna get more people in here, I don't know. First, I want to give a big shout out to Mikey Austin and his dad for this the shirt. It's on this side. This side. Um, so yeah, so big ups to Mikey Austin's dad for Joe for the shirt. So I always want to say thank you to those that are joining us. I mean, I'll give it an extra second. I'll kind of slowly go into it before we really dive into it. There's a lot that I would like to cover and kind of put out there. Think of this as like a free seminar for wrestling and non-wrestling folks. Um, I think we can accomplish a lot, and we can kind of get a lot of information out there about what the average pro wrestling uh, hopeful goes through, and what I see a lot of the trainees here from Three Legs Wrestling that they go through, and obviously through my almost near 20 years of being in the professional wrestling industry, of what I've been able to accomplish, and then the work that goes into it, which I don't think a lot of the average folk understand or sees what goes behind the scenes, the struggles, the chasing the dream versus the reality of the dream, um, which is a big thing that I don't think a lot of people understand for of the grind. Um, Thank you, Brittany. I'll get that Bill Baines one day. Um, so for those that are not aware of who I am, which I mean, we're getting more folks in here. I'll slowly start into it. My name is Jesus Rodriguez. I used to be in WWE under the name of Ricardo Rodriguez. I was a personal ring announcer for one, Mr. Alberto Del Rio. We got a chance to be in WWE for near 5 years, roughly, and we got a chance to be a part of like four WrestleManias. We got to do a whole lot of stuff, travel internationally. We had action figures and we got stuff, right? Which is kind of cool. I started in Los Angeles, California in 2005 training, um, and started wrestling in 2006 officially. And for the last, I was on the independent scene for about 4 years before I got signed to WWE. Thankfully, on August 10th is when I did my tryout of 2010. And it just kind of went from there. After WWE, I went on to India. I did stuff in Egypt. I did stuff in Australia, throughout Europe and Mexico, and now here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So there's a lot that goes into the idea of the dream, and that's what I kind of want to get into. It. I would like to do in about like 30-minute chat. Um, so what's up, David? Uh, so I appreciate Kinetic Movers, man. You guys are awesome. So thank you for all your help. So we'll go with section one of the what's the price of the glory that we're trying to achieve as professional wrestlers as we go on, and it's more like much like a lot of industries or descriptions of jobs that are very niche. They're not so like I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an architect, right? We are telling our parents and our loved ones, hey, I'm gonna go be a professional wrestler, which ultimately at the end, right, it's kind of like saying, well, I'm going to go study art and I'm going to go do theater. I'm going to go be an actor. And you're like, all right, buddy, when are you going to get right? So you get into that already. You're already facing that from the get go. A lot of family members are not going to be supportive. A lot of Friends are not going to be supportive. You're going to be ridiculed. You're going to be made fun of. Your significant other may be telling you that your dream is stupid. Those are right from the get go. Before you even go on and say, hey, I'm going to, you know, actually do it, you're already facing that little bit of a setback, is ultimately your loved ones. If you have people that support you from the get-go, I can't express how amazing that is. Whenever we do our student showcases here at the 3LW Academy, after the shows, I always tell the families how awesome and amazing it is that the wrestlers have the family support, the loved ones, the boyfriends, girlfriends, the wives, husbands, the kids, everybody that supports them, because that is such a big drag sometimes. When you're trying to accomplish something, you're trying to make a dream become reality, and your loved ones are the first ones to say that it's stupid. So you're already facing that little bit of a roadblock from the get go. Um, and you'll always encounter, and I've had it in the past where, you know, I've been given that ultimatum from my significant other that says, hey, you know, it's either wrestling or me. And it's like, well, I mean, I've known wrestling longer than you, so doodle, you know, later. You're gonna miss birthdays, you're gonna miss special events, you're gonna miss so much, all for the sake of, hey, I'm gonna go wrestle. Sorry I can't be there for your birthday, sorry I can't be there for your graduation or whatever. I have a show that is, you know, I don't know, 2 3 4 hours away, and I'm gonna go make maybe $20. So I can't make it to your birthday, but hey, happy birthday. And then, you know, most of the time they're not gonna care, because they're like, yeah, well, whatever, we'll just still go party and whatever. But you're gonna miss a lot of important dates. You're gonna miss a lot of that stuff. I can't tell you how many times I didn't do anything for my birthday. I didn't celebrate Christmas. I didn't celebrate, you know, none of that when I was with WWE specifically, because we were on the road. When we were on these holiday tours, we would be, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we will fly out on the 25th, roughly sometimes, and then start the holiday tour on the 26th. But we would fly out the 25th. So we didn't celebrate. I didn't celebrate. Now the holidays for so many years that after I left WWE, to me the holidays were just another day. And to a degree, I still fall under that. Um, to me, it's just another day. So I don't, you know, I don't celebrate holidays. I don't celebrate my birthday. I don't care about my birthday. It's just another day to me. Um, but that's been a big, as a result of just constantly going and never stopping and moving and keeping going. Um, I'll celebrate everybody else's birthday. I will. I'll be like, "Hey, happy birthday!" But we still have work to do, and it kind of goes from there. And then now we go into this whole like chasing the dream versus the actual reality of it. And I think the things that, when once we start embarking on this journey of becoming a pro wrestler, we don't realize a lot of the stuff that it takes in order to get to that next point in your career. You know, we'll start off from the beginning, right? So starting to train, your body is gonna tell you, hey, what are you doing? You're gonna be doing a lot of stuff that your body's not used to. You're purposely falling. Your brain and your body are gonna be like, "Hey, man, what the hell are you doing?" And you're gonna have to tell yourself like, "No, I'm doing this on purpose. Um, I'm doing this on purpose. I'm hurting myself on purpose." And so you have that constant battle internally for a while. So you're already going into that. You're going to be getting up sore. You're going to be tired, sore. What's always nice about having people that have done sports in the past is that they already understand that part. They already understand that it's going to take a while for your body to get accustomed in order to move on to the next level. Um, I wrote notes. Sorry. So there's that, and then ultimately convincing your brain, because your mental health is going to take a big shit on you, and it's going to be telling you, "Hey, man, what are you doing? This isn't what we thought it was," and it's not. It's not. I think a lot of folks when they come in to start training, they realize, or they think they're like, "Well, I'm going to go in, do a couple of stunners, I'm going to do a swanton bomb, and then call it a day, and then I'm a wrestler." No, 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 not at all. Um, it's a whole process, and uh, understanding that it's a process. We live in a time and in a country that is very right now. It's very instant gratification. This is what we need right now, so I want it now. It's like that one commercial, it's my money and I want it now type of thing. um, that's what a lot of folks here tend to have sometimes. Advantage that I had when I lived in India, when I lived in Japan. I'm sorry, when I lived in Egypt, excuse me, was that a lot of the students that I had over there, they were very grateful for everything that was happening because they didn't have it before. They understood process. They understood that, hey, 99% of them, they understood that it's going to take a little time to be taught properly and then to get to the next point. And they were very grateful, which ultimately that's a whole another thing was understanding gratitude. Uh, because here and again I go back to the same thing, we're in a generation and in a country that's very I want it now, and we don't say thank you for the most part. We don't appreciate a lot of stuff that's given and provided for us because there's such a big wide variety of it that we just want it now. um, and that's why also people give up quick because they think it's a quick fix. They think it's something fast, and then they're going to become a professional wrestler, and they're going to be an ultimate mega star in under a year. And it doesn't work that way. Very rare does something like that ever happen. Um, it's not to say that it doesn't, but it's very rare. And so we go into that, right, understanding that this is a whole long process. um, and then we go into the finances, right? Financially, this is not an easy thing. I think because even I just had a chat not too long ago, and uh, they were asking about like, oh, it wasn't you, Kristen. It wasn't you. It was somebody else. Um, they were asking about like wrestlers pay. I was like, brother, sir, yeah, man. On the independent level is when you're starting up, like man, like you're gonna be spending so much money on the car rides, on the food along the way, your gear, and then you're gonna be spending a lot of time hoping and hopefully crossing your fingers that you get an opportunity to wrestle for I don't know 8 minutes, 10 minutes. I can't tell you how many times I've driven or flown across the world for 10 minutes of work. Um, and I lost basically a week's worth, basically. You fly 2 days, you spend a day there, and you fly 2 days back. Um, and for 10, 15 minutes of work. And, um, and then you realize, like, man, that was financially, that was not worth it at all on a financial level. The car rides. I mean, yesterday was an example. I mean, it was different circumstance because I was a little dinged up, so uh, I couldn't wrestle. So I cut a deal with the promoter, and he was awesome about it. But I spent most of it on gas. I spent most of it what I got paid on gas and food, and so I ended up with maybe 20, 40 bucks of my own at the end of it. Um, so even at that point, right? Uh, the amount of what you're going to be spending on financially for the sake of one day achieving something like this or something like a WrestleMania, uh, and the time, because time is so valuable, and I wish I would have learned that when I was younger. I wish I would have learned that time is precious, and I was younger, so I didn't know any better, so I just kind of kept going and just doing stupid stuff because I'm young. I don't know any better. Uh, and there's a lot of stuff that I wish I would have taken, I wouldn't have taken for granted when I was younger. And time was definitely one of them. Um, but I was in this hunt. I became obsessed with this dream of become a professional wrestler. But also, and then let me also mention another thing too. There is a happy ending to all of this, right? I'm gonna take you to this whole like shitty friggin' life that we go through of depression and the loneliness that you go through, nobody understanding you, being broke, um, taking showers at a gas station because you're sleeping in your car after an 8 hour drive. Um, and then you have to be at work in the morning, so you go straight to work, but you took a shower, or we used to call them the truck stop showers. You just kind of go to the sink and then just wash the important parts, and then you go to straight to work. Um, the We kind of touched already a little base on the physical toll that it takes on you. Um, it does. It does. You're tired. You're constantly tired, uh, and nobody understands. And also at the same time, nobody cares, and that's a big important part. Nobody cares because the world still goes on. The world moves. The world still revolves. So you still have to be up at work in the morning, and you still have to do your, your parental duties. You still have to do your whatever it is that you're supposed to do, your responsibilities. So whether you're tired physically, uh, you still have to do whatever you have to do. So you develop this mental, this physical strength after a while of like, all right, yeah, I'm tired, but I still have to get up. This is what I chose. Nobody's forcing me to become a pro wrestler, so I have to learn how to get up. I have to learn how to keep moving. Um, and then we go into the side of the mental health, and it's the same thing, right? Because this is a very lonely road. It's a very lonely journey. Um, I remember many years ago I was at an event, and there it was in Los Angeles. I had just performed. I was done, and I was kind of looking, peeking through the curtains, and it was dark behind me. And then there was the guys that were in the ring, and I was just watching them. And then this voice behind me just kind of comes, and then he goes like, and then I remember this. It was a very deep voice, and then he goes like, "Hey, look at them. Uh, they're surrounded by so many people, but I bet you they feel so alone." And I was like, "What the fuck?" Um, and so that kind of stuck to me. There is this, and even though I never got to achieve the same level of success that obviously like the big celebrities, your Britney Spears and that can do Miley Cyrus or whatever, I got a glimpse, a small little taste of something of sorts. And so when they would go and have those like panic attacks and then just kind of like lose their shit and shave their Britney Spears would shave her head when Lindsay Lohan was doing all her craziness. I later on I understood a bit why, uh, because it's mentally draining and you feel alone and you don't know how to process a lot of the thoughts and emotions that are going through your head. We're surrounded by people for those 10 minutes that we're on the rink, but then you go to the back, you leave that building and nobody cares who you are, nobody knows who you are. As you go to the gas station, you start to pay for for your gas, you start to pay for your food. You're not going to get special privileges. When you're in the building, sure, you're a rock star, you're a celebrity within that vicinity. But the moment you leave, nobody gives a fuck who you are, right? You're still an adult. You still have to go and do your things. So you have to come back to reality super quick and super fast. And oftentimes, and I've been guilty of it. I was guilty of it when I was in WWE, that I didn't know how to separate Ricardo from Jesus. Uh, because I was so encapsulated into that moment and that energy and that aura that when I came off of that stage and I went back to reality and became a civilian again, I didn't know how to turn that off. And oftentimes, a lot of people don't know how to. Um, so there's that whole process that goes into it. Now, on the independent level, I've met a lot of people, man, that like um, they're heroes in their own small little towns, and bless them, bless them. And it's cute and adorable when they toss their weight around a lot of folks there that like they don't know any better, so it's not their fault. They're within their own little vicinity and within their own little bubble, and that's fine. That's fine. That's totally fine. Um, but again, the reality versus the dream. If their dream is that and that's their reality, so be it. That's totally fine. Um, there's a lot of folks that have experienced a lot wider and bigger platforms out there. Um, so we go into like that the mental toll that it takes on you, your own ego. The bit that I had to turn on in my brain was this is what I want to do. And I don't mean like this is what I kind of want to do. This I want to try it. Like no, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. This has to become an obsession for you. It has to become an obsession that you're willing to put in the effort and you're willing to put out there, and then at all costs go and make it happen. So making those long drives, getting in the car with people, I've mentioned in the past too, in any interviews that, or even just here at the school, like man, like we didn't have seminars when I was coming up. Um, I think seminars started becoming more of a thing in like I don't know, like the 2015 timeframe. That's when seminars started really popping up. The online presence really started helping out a lot of it. So, but we didn't have seminars. Seminars for us were the car rides. Seminars was going to pick up the star and then driving them to the hotel or taking them out to go eat, or our seminars were in the ring getting our ass beat. Those were our seminars when we were placed with in a match with somebody that was with more experience, and they beat the living dog shit out of you. Um, right? Again, it's a different time frame. But those were our seminars, and that's how we learned. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a car that I've been driven with, where and then not this is not to tout my own ego or whatever, but where everybody in the car was on their phone, and in my head I'm like, dude, you could be asking questions, you know. Uh, I've been around quite a bit. Like you can ask me questions, or even like there was not too long ago I was in the car. With MJF in Florida. They picked us up together, and I was just asking him questions, right? Just his experiences, his input, his take, and then just kind of learn his perspective. Because even though technically I have more time under him, he's at a point right now where I want to know how he got there, and I want to know how he processed things, and I want to learn his perspective because his reality is what he's experiencing, and then I'm not aware of it, I don't know it. So why don't I ask him questions to hopefully get a different view of something that I may have already experienced, but I saw it in my way because again, my ego gets in my way, and then I want to learn somebody else's. So, so that was a cool little experience. And then and again, like this whole thing of the phone and just I do ask questions. You have so many people around you that have been to a place where you can now again respectfully. You have to ask respectfully. You don't want to be bombarding somebody because then it becomes annoying. Um, but and then learning how to ask the questions that you want to ask. Um, again, you're in a car with somebody who's been where you want to be, that's done things that you want to accomplish. Ask questions. Um, so yeah, get off your phones. Get off your fucking phones. Um, there's a lot of different ways to achieve the same thing. An example I tend to use a lot too is that um, obviously my journey was very different than a lot of other people. Um, I flew myself out to Europe. I flew myself for that opportunity, and then thankfully I did okay over there. That Chris over at DWA liked me a lot. That after the first time, he kept bringing me over, and then from there I networked, and I just kind of went from there. And I started making connections elsewhere, and it just kind of went from there. I didn't go through a lot of the local scene per se, the big scene in LA. I didn't go through that. I kind of carved my own way around it, and then I still did my thing. When I got to WWE, I got signed right after my tryout. Um, and it wasn't I got signed to do ring announcing. It wasn't I didn't get signed to be a wrestler. I got signed to do ring announcing. So I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. So what I'm trying to get at is like there's so many different ways to get to the same answer utilizing different equations. So 2 plus 2 is 4, but so is 3 plus 1, right? So is 5 minus 1. So there's so many different ways you can accomplish the same dream and the same goal through different equations. So that's what I meant earlier when we started was that I'm speaking through my experience. My experience is mine only, and if it applies to other people, great. If it doesn't, that's totally fine too. But what's nice about my experience is that I lived through so many highs and so many lows that I can spot it in other people. I'm like, hey, don't do that, or hey, good job with that, because I've seen it and I've been through it, and I learned how to come out of those situations. So that's also where my job as the coach or the trainer or whatever, I'm able to guide those that are out there to the best of my ability. Um, so then we go into also like the business side of this whole journey. Um, Understand too that all these little topics have so many layers that we can go into, but I want to keep it under a certain amount of time. The business side of wrestling, right? Um, was I wish, and as much as I love my trainer, I wish that my trainer and the original guy who brought me into the industry would have taught me more about networking. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know networking. I would just go wrestle, do my shit, and then get the fuck out. Right? That was all I knew, and I never understood this whole thing of networking. Of as we speak in AA, is the meeting after the meeting. Retro Tiburon, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Um, oh man, UEW, that's a while ago. But yeah, so the networking aspect, right? Um, I think oftentimes when we think about networking and politicking, we think automatically of ass kissing when that's not the case all the time. Of course it happens, absolutely it happens. That's not to say it doesn't, it does. But that's not the route that you should be taking, or just automatically go into. Politicking can also go into being of service, being of help. How can you make the promoter's job a lot easier for your benefit down the road? And also understand that it's not always going to be instantaneous. It might take a couple events, it might take some time, but the more they see you, the more like, hey, this kid, I like him, he's always there. Somebody just called off, and then let me give him a spot. uh, Perfect example, Hawthorne. Hawthorne was always helping out at the early 3LW events. And then one day I was like, hey man, do you want to wrestle? And then it went from there. Darren Hardaway is another example, right? Tarzan Duran, he was at the very first show, just kind of there, and then somebody no showed on the very first event, and then he's been on ever since. Um, so the politicking aspect of it doesn't always mean you have to be ass kissing when that's not the case. It's also how can you be of help to make the person in charge's life so much easier. And then when you're given that opportunity, you better knock it out of the ballpark. And I was very grateful that for a lot of the times that when I was coming up, that I went to shows and I helped out and I was a part of the ring crew. I would offer to go pick up the name. I would go to the LAX and pick up this guy to take him to Hollywood to for the show. I would take him to the hotel. I would take him to go eat. I would take him to the next town. I would offer for that. Um, and I got my seminar that way. And ultimately, I got opportunities that way too, because then you connect with that person, and they're like, "Hey, man, this kid he's a good kid. Hey, we have the show coming up in Phoenix. Do you wanna come out? Hell yeah, of course." And then you just go from there. Um, yeah, so there's that. So yeah, so it doesn't mean ass kissing. It doesn't always mean ass kissing. And again, I reiterate it. Does it happen? Absolutely, absolutely. There are folks that respectfully, I wish they would pull their heads out of my ass sometimes. Um, but I understand. So that's when I pull them aside. I was like, hey man, you don't have to do that. That's cool. Like I know what you do, and just be a part. And then if something arises, I'll be more than happy to place it on you. Um, so there's that. But yeah, man, like the let me go back a quick step. I'm very grateful too that at this point in time, through my years of experience, there's a lot of folks that confide in me, and I'm grateful for that, because they go through those moments of doubt, um, of whether this is for them or not. And if there's anything that I can guarantee you from my personal experience, is that had I given up a while ago, a lot of this wouldn't be happening right now. This conversation would not be happening had I given up a while ago. Um, does it suck as you're going through it? Oh, absolutely. It's terrible. You're broke. You're hungry. Uh, you're starving for attention. You're starving for that little bit of self satisfaction, and then you keep telling yourself, if this is for you, and I go back to the same thing, man. Like, so what if you give up? What's gonna happen? You go back to your 9 to 5, and then that's it. Have you fully given it everything that you can? Uh, and ultimately, too, is, are you a quitter? Because sometimes we need that hard reality. We need that hard truth. Like, all right, give up. Go ahead, give up. And then what? And then what happens? Uh, and I'll be honest, man. And I said it earlier too. Like, there are times where I think to myself, like, what if I had given up a while ago when I first started? When 2 years, 3 years in, where I was like, man, I'm not getting on the big shows in LA. They're not. I'm not in with the cool kids in LA. I'm kind of hanging out with this other group, and I'm not getting on where I wanna be. So what if I had given up? I wonder what would have happened had I pursued my dream of because I loved astronomy, I love archaeology, I want to study the pyramids, I wanted to start study the planets. So I would have gone into, in my head, at least in my head, I would have gone into archaeology or astronomy. I would have learned some sort of science, and I would have gone that route. Maybe I would have been married. I would have had kids. I would have had a house, the German Shepherd, the Golden Retriever with the white picket fence. I don't know. Um, I don't know what would have happened, but I mean, I get nothing out of living in the what if. Uh, at this point in time, I get nothing out of that. It's just a little pipe dream that could have been that like what could have been. Um, and then let me go back real quick into like the finances of back then of being an independent wrestler. Like, dude, like when I was coming up, man, I used to work at this restaurant called Cousin Subs from like the age of 16 to like the age of like 21 or 20. It was like a Subway. And so I was doubling up between that. I was going to school for graphic design, and then I was working at a diner washing dishes at a Denny's just to kind of, pay for these long car drives. Because again, we were, making nothing. Sometimes we wouldn't get paid. We would go over to the marketplace in Anaheim for Martin and not get paid because they only had like two people in the audience. Um, but we were getting the reps, and we would do like LA, downtown LA or East LA, and uh, over like on Slauson, and wrestle there for like $5 if that. Uh, and we were just getting the reps, but like I would have to. I had multiple jobs just to pay for my insurance, my rent, my whatever. Um, I and then once I started getting more into it, so I had my graphic design job. I used to work for an adult entertainment company, no secret. I used to do that during the day, and then oftentimes at night I would go find like a diner, so like a Denny's. I would do part time, like late at night, to wash dishes or whatever, so that I can supplement my habit of going to wrestle. There were so many times where I would go wrestle on a Sunday up in San Francisco or in San Jose. We would finish, or I would finish, because sometimes I would drive by myself. I would finish at like, I don't know, 10 or so by the time we got out, and then drive 5 or 6 hours back home. I would drop people off or just go by myself. And then by then, I would just sleep in my car, and then I would park outside where I used to work at. And then, stop at a gas station somewhere and just wash myself and then go to work the next morning. And then after that, go straight to training. And I was training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and I was wrestling Friday, Saturday, Sundays. So I go back into this becomes an obsession. So there's that little bit. So the sacrifices, right, that all this entails is your relationships, your family, your mental health, your physical. Um, you're skipping and missing so many important dates because this is the dream that we all want to strive for. Um, and even now, right? Uh, I got a chance to travel, and then I've had relationships during my time with WWE and beforehand, um, and then even shortly after, I had relationships, and I was very grateful that when I was in India, I was dating somebody, and we had that relationship together um, that when I was like drained, when I was like so just in my head, I was like, man, what am I doing out here? I would be able to call her, and I'd be like, hey, babe, I just need that moral support. Just tell me you love me, right? That's all I needed, um, because this is such a lonely journey, and I can't stress that enough. And even now, I can't express how many times like I go somewhere, and then I'll travel somewhere because I had this whole long week of just life out here, and then the promoting, the training, and I go to these shows, and it's cool, and it's a cool little escape. And I go back to my hotel, and I'm like, well, I'm just here. I don't have anybody to call. Um, and that part sucks, that part sucks, but it is. And that's why I go back into the whole thing of like, if you have that support system, that significant other that's willing to give you that love and that support, and how important it is, because this is such a lonely road if you don't. um but on the contrary, the nice thing about obviously not having that is that you can do whatever the fuck you want. uh and pardon my language. A lot of the journeys that I got to go on was because I didn't have anybody to tell me no. When I went to India, it was just because no, I didn't have anything holding me back, and I just said, "All right, I'm going." I went for 6 months. When I went to England from there, it was the same thing. I didn't have anything holding me back, so I went for what 4 months it was. Uh, when I went out to Mexico City, it was the same thing. I didn't have anything to hold me back, so I went to Mexico City for like 4 or 5 months. Egypt, I went for almost a year because I didn't have anything to hold me back. So that's the advantage of that side. But also at the same time, like I said, this is a very lonely road, and after a while, it does get to you. Your mental health takes such a huge drainage, that a lot of us sometimes don't have that emotional support. Um, and it would be nice maybe one day to have that somebody that when you're like you're tired, you're exhausted, like you just be like, man, like what am I doing? That you get that, hey babe, it's okay, I love you, and then you're okay. I'm thinking of you. We'll be fine, right? So that's why having that emotional support is so key and important. From whether it's a relationship partner or just a friend, right? That's it's key. Um, so then what happens when you finally get to that stage where you think you have what you were looking for? Well, it's one thing to get in somewhere, and it's a whole another thing to keep it, right? Um, I was very grateful that when I was on Independence before WWE, there was this company down in Oceanside, California, by the name of, it was called SoCal Pro, and Jeff Dino was awesome to me because he was one of the first promoters that really gave me a full on, like, hey, we're running with this guy, and outside of LA, right? Because I had UEW, which was awesome, with Carnage and U Suicide. They were awesome. They liked us a lot, so I was able to take him, myself, and a couple of the guys, and we became regulars there. And then obviously my home promotion of Nueva Tradición Lucha Libre, New Tradition Lucha Wrestling, in Van Nuys with Joe Medina. That's my home promotion. So those were my two. But Jeff Dino in Oceanside, California, or by San Diego, was the first real guy outside of my bubble that really said, "Hey, let's do something with him," and I was very grateful for that. Um, and and I got opportunities other places that I wanted to be in. But I think ultimately what happens a lot here now, and a lot of times, is that we think, well, I'm already in, so I'm good, and then we just kind of fly through it, and then we just kind of phone it in. Um, and I go, and then it's a whole other thing, right? So it's a whole thing to get in somewhere, but it's a whole other thing to stay there because there's other people that are vying for your position. They want your spot. While we're all friends and we're all good and friendly and all that stuff, we have to also realize this is still a business, and you're still fighting for opportunities. You're still fighting for that position, and whether we want to admit it or not, I mean, everybody, myself included, at any place, we're all expendable, all of us. Um, so I think a big mistake that I made coming up too was, at a few places when I was younger, was I thought I was in, and I thought I'm good, I don't need to work hard, until I started realizing, hey man, they're kind of like, like putting other people in my position. I wonder what it is or why. And then I realized because I was phoning it in after a bit. um, and I think that's what happens with a lot of folks sometimes. So we can't be content and assume that we're automatically going to be placed somewhere, when there's other people that are hungry for your spot. Uh, and if they beat you to it, they win over the promoter or the whoever is in charge. Then hey, that's your loss, man. Um, so you still, once you get to that position, you still have to work, you still have to put in the effort, you still have to do your thing. You still have to work sometimes even harder to maintain your position, whether it's at the top or anywhere on the card that you want to be a part of. You still have to maintain that hunger in that position. um, and I feel like oftentimes we just go and phone it in, and I was very guilty of that, especially when we're in WWE towards the end of it. We were just like, I'm already here. uh, I don't have to do anything. Like, no, yeah, we still do, because as we see in WWE, you see a new batch of people every year, right? And then there's massive releases, and I'm not saying that some of them are justifiable or whatever. I'm sure there's reasons, and it always sucks to see that. But I can tell you from my personal experience, I got content, and I was like, I don't have to work to maintain my position. And then when I started seeing that I wasn't on a lot of stuff, I was like, hey man, I think my time is coming up. And that's when I decided to call in before they fired me. I was like, hey, I'm out, I'm leaving, because I've seen what they do with people when they fire them, right? Um, so yeah, so we see new people all the time, and so we still have to work hard to maintain a position and a spot that's being offered to us, um, so that the grind never stops. Nothing ever stops. We have to always keep pushing forward. And then now on my end, now as I'm older and I'm experienced, I get to I get to see a lot of things and a lot of mistakes that I made when I was younger. I get to see it in other people, and I have to tell them ahead of time, "Hey, man, don't do that," because I've seen it and I've been through it. I've lived it. So don't do that. Um, like I said, there's a happy ending to all of this. There really is. Uh, I've been very open and honest about like my downside of my wrestling journey when I had like my little valleys with my addiction and all that stuff. And I lost a lot of it. I lost a lot of connections. I lost a lot of friends. My piggy bank went down the drain. I lost my home, my cars, all of that, because ultimately I was content and I was like, I don't have to do anything. I'm good. I'm set. No, I left the industry. I left the company rather, and then I thought I was it. That was it. I was a head honcho, and nobody's gonna tell me anything. And I didn't realize I still had to put in the effort to maintain relevancy. I thought I was going to live under the WWE umbrella for all eternity and not do anything, and still be accepted to be a certain thing or a certain idea. Um, but I never realized I still have to put in the effort. I still have to put in the work. I can't be a fat slob and experience or expect everybody to treat me like I was when I was in WWE. It doesn't work that way. So you have to rebuild and then remold and then still stay active. The nice thing about, for instance, like social media is free, dude. It's free. It's free advertising for yourself. It's free advertising for whatever it is that you're trying to represent, whatever it is that you're trying to do. I've seen so many people that they may not be the greatest workers. They may not be the no. Let me backtrack. They may not be the best wrestlers, but they sure know how to work because they have this presence, they have this aura, they have this energy, and how they portray themselves on social media, and they get opportunities. And we saw a lot of it during the COVID era because obviously during COVID, nobody's wrestling, so you still have to maintain your relevancy somehow. So a lot of these individuals had an amazing time during utilizing the creativity during the COVID era, utilizing Vine or not Vine, TikTok or excuse me, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and they became these like sensations online. And but they were willing to put in that work and that effort, right? And that's awesome. That's amazing because they're still willing to put in that grind to get themselves out there. And I encounter so many people now that go like, well, I don't want to do. I'm not a social media person. I was like, well, you better get on it because I mean, I'll be honest, right? And I realize what I'm doing right now. This is all social media. Um, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I also can't ignore it. We shouldn't ignore it. We realize this is free advertisement. You can put content for free out there daily, and all you need is that one person to see it, and you're like, all right, this guy, we're gonna do something with him. We like him. Uh, and again, I mean, I'm reiterating, I'm speaking from my personal experiences, from things that I've learned along the way, from mistakes that I've made, from lessons that I had to learn the hard way in order to get to a certain point. A thing that I was very grateful that I didn't realize I was doing at the time that I do now is that even though I'm not as active in the ring as I was, years ago, I'm still active every week. I'm still doing stuff, thankfully, and I'm very grateful for it. And that's because I paid attention to a lot of people and a lot of stuff, and I learned and I listened um, without realizing I was listening. I think a lot of times people think that hearing is listening when it's not. Listening is listening. Seeing is not understanding. Observing is understanding because I can be flashing this right here in front of you, and that you're just off over there. But I'm very grateful that during my time with WWE, I would spend time with the guys doing the ring crew. I would spend time with the commentary team. I would spend time with the guy doing pyro, just chat with them. I would spend time with the guy doing music, and I would chat with them. I would spend time with the producers and just chat with them, just kind of getting their insight. I would ask them questions. I was like, "Hey, why did you do this instead of what they had suggested?" And then they would explain it, and you're like, "Oh, cool. I didn't think of it that way." Um, Understanding the whys of everything. The hows is easy. How is like, how do you make this? Oh, you do da 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 da. Why are you doing it this way? And then you realize that is so valuable to understand the why of wrestling. And because of that, many years later, and through a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of downs that I experienced in life, I'm able to thankfully have a job in so many different aspects. I get hired to go do ring announcing, or excuse me, commentary once a month. I do producing once a month. I promote once a month. Well, promoting is a whole, that's 24/7. I get to wrestle, right? So I get to wear a lot of different hats, thankfully, in different industries, in different companies, and that maintains my relevancy. And even then, right, is also keeping ourselves in check and realizing that, as a wise man once said, you may be good, but you ain't shit, right? Yesterday, right, at a show, there was a lot of folks that were there that were asking me what I've been up to. So they had no clue that I own this. They had no clue that I own Three Legacies. They had no clue that I am a producer for Major League Wrestling. They had no clue that I'm still wrestling. They had no clue of my time in Egypt. They have no clue of my time in India. They have no concept of that, right? But that's not their fault, though. That's not their fault. It's a reality check. It's an ego check, of course. Um, but also that tells me that I still have more work to do. And it's not for me to put myself out there in that aspect either. It's me for now to build something for other people to be able to showcase their abilities and to showcase and to have a platform for everybody to grow and to have something. And that's where my grind comes in now. My grind comes in from just the constant adding stuff to my plate that I shouldn't be fucking adding, but here I am, right? And because I'm not content with just, all right, well, we're here, we're cool. We have these people that come to our shows every month. Like, no, there's, I don't know, I used this example yesterday. There are, let's just say, for example, I don't know how many people there are in Lancaster. If somebody can help me, let's just say there's a million. I don't know. Let's just say there's a million people in Lancaster, but we only have X amount, a very, very tiny fraction of people that out of that audience that comes to our shows. So that means there's a whole lot of other people that are not aware of us. And so same thing, right? The wrestling industry is massive in a way, but still people don't know that I own a wrestling company, that I am still around, right? People don't know that. People don't even realize that I spoke English, right? And this is recent. Um, so that's just to say that the grind never stops. This has to become an obsession. You have to be obsessed with what you're doing, and you have to love it blindly, because this industry, man, it takes so much from you, but it also gives you some amazing experiences. If it wasn't for pro wrestling, there's a lot of stuff that I never would have in my dreams have had experience. My time of WrestleMania, and not let's just not even say wrestling. It's just they're not wrestling related. I got to experience Egypt. I got to experience India. I got to experience Australia. I got to experience living in Mexico City. I got to experience living in England. Um, I'm in video games, like action figures, that stuff, and that stuff is awesome. But then I go back to, if I had given up at the very first sign of me not wanting to do this anymore, none of this would be happening. um, I'm very grateful for the opportunity that life has given me to give me another opportunity at this whole weird thing of life. Why I want to keep punishing myself? Because I tell you, man, there's times where I just keep telling myself, like, man, no, just hang on, just hang on. This is gonna be worth it. Um, but it's very important to have that support. Um, that's I think that's a very key element to all of this. Having that somebody that tells you, man, you're good, or your significant other that'll be like, hey, I love you, and I support you. I'm with you. Just keep going. I know it's tough. One day it'll happen, hopefully, but in the meantime, we just keep grinding, we keep pushing, we keep going forward, we keep getting up, because there are results that we have seen, be it with us or other places that have shown that it is possible. Um, and it's because of that little bit of hope that keeps us going and keeps us moving forward. And if it's anything to, and again, it's not intended for me to be like, oh, look at me, but um, I've been there. I've been there, and if anything, I'm very grateful that I can guide and show that there are possible ways to make it somewhere, right? Just for instance, last night, there were I think a total of 8 through W Academy students that were wrestling throughout West Virginia, Delaware, and even Florida. Um, and that's awesome. So they're on their way and they're networking, and that's our job to guide them, to give them the best possible success rate that we can possibly give it to them. Is everybody going to make it realistically? Of course not. But then also too, what does making it happen or entail? Everybody has a different definition of what making it is. So for some, it might be, hey, I just kind of want to, be on TV once, and that's cool. For others, I want to make a living out of it, right? Be able to pay my rent, support my family, all that stuff, and that to them is making it. Everybody has a different definition of what it is. Um, but that's where we, as a whole, as a community, should be proud and happy for those of us that get a chance to go out and do it. We should be supporting them because this, again, is such a niche dream that not many people understand it and not many people will ever support it. So when you have family members or your loved ones that ridicule it, um, then it starts with that, right? It starts with being able, because sometimes all you need is that one person that says, I believe in you. And that's enough oftentimes to be able to push somebody to say, all right, well, I can't let them down. Ultimately, I can't let myself down because I'm going to make it. I'm going to go do something with this. And you're going to be thrown so many monkey wrenches along the way, be it finances, and again, the loved ones, physical injuries, mental health. Um, that's all going to be a part of it. But again, you have to become obsessed with this, and you have to become stubborn. That you have to tell yourself, like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it, and you're going to watch me. And we've all seen those memes of the support versus the congratulations, right? And I can tell you that's hard facts. I did a lot of stuff on my own, without the support of sometimes parents. Obviously, I've not no relationship. I had to accomplish a lot of things on my own out of the stubbornness of my own will, that I said I'm gonna make it and watch me do it. And sure enough, here we are. um, is this the end of the ride? Of course not. There's still so much more work to be done. So to say, hey, I'm the king of the area, fuck no. There's still so much to be done. There's a lot of work for not just oneself, but as a whole community. There's a whole lot of work for us, all of us, to be a part of and to do to achieve much greater success for all of us involved. Because ultimately, that's what we're doing, right? We're trying to lift each other up. We're trying to build and create something for everybody to enjoy, and the more work that we all or the more that we all put into it, the more we can nurture it, take care of it, and then build something stronger for everybody involved. um, but not, this journey is not easy at all. And I think that's also what makes us stronger than a lot of folks, is that we're stubborn, we're going, we're tough, and we don't give up. So I just want to say thank you guys for joining us. Again, there's so much more to all of this, and there's so many subsections to every little bit that I have said. But if you're an independent wrestler out there, do the drives, learn, ask questions from people that have been where you want to be. Um, is there a lot of bad advice? Of course, there's a lot of bad advice. But just take it for a grain of salt, and then learn from the what not to do, the what to do. And I wish everybody the best of luck. Um, there's a lot of cool stuff that happens when you don't give up.